going to do the final plan
Right.
sign off, right?
Yeah,
For permitting.
we're gonna ink it, right? We're gonna say, okay, we're all good with this. Plans are being signed off on. Now from there we're gonna be able to submit our permits.
Well, and so those plans that we're signing off on at that stage, we're signing off basically go to permit. At that stage, the plans we're signing off on are close plans to what we would need to submit to the municipality for permit, but they're not
Minus
permit
all
ready
the
plans.
Yeah,
minus
exactly.
a lot of the the details that get added to the plans, the structural calcs, everything like that. So once final plan sign off occurs, then that plan we put our stamp on it, send it off to the architects and say, hey guys, this is good to go to permit. The architects have their whole checklist of things they need to go to permit. They get working on adding all those details, making sure everything's in the plans. Meanwhile, our team's busy preparing what we need to do to submit that permit once we receive all the documents. So there's a lot that obviously goes into
There's a lot of
permit
moving
submittal
parts
than
going
just
on there.
one set of plans. When you've been working with the architects, jumping back a little bit, we've got the engineers in the background. Once architects have that foundation layout, we're going to our engineers, we're supplying that layout to them, and they're popping it on the engineering plan for the home. We're again showing the client too, like, hey, this is how the home's going to be oriented on your home site. Go over kind of how some of the grades are going to work and stuff like that. So that's happening kind of as that architectural, on the tail end of that architectural design.
Yeah, they're always that engineering piece we talked about a little bit earlier is going on as we're doing the architectural phase, and the site planning, preliminary site planning, orientation of the home on the lot, which
I think what people really care about in the engineering phase is like orientation, setbacks from the road, and then also what their yard's going to look like, understanding, what the grade lines mean and stuff like that.
How's a pool going to possibly work in my backyard, right? Am I going to have a ski slope coming out my back door, or is it going to be well thought out where, I'm going to be able to have a pool sitting out back and not feel like we're walking out our door and, down a hill per se, right?
And there's obviously a lot of other stuff that goes into the engineering than just, what you see, right? Then we're working out the storm sewers, the sanitary and water, that's all on that engineering
specific grade heights that is driven by city codes, stormwater management, all the utility connections, how they're going to come into the house and so forth, and
that's
so
where
on.
a lot of those things that you'll see on our home cost sheet under kind of that site development section really come into play in the engineering, the home site. There's a lot of variables,
we can dial it in.
And that's all kind of happening on the tail end of architectural and continuing. And at the same time, the architects are working on their permit set of plans. Our engineers are working on their permit set of plans, hand in hand with our architects, to make sure both of their plans coincide.
And we've got the mechanicals too, right? We've got to send all these drawings off to our mechanical contractors to get all of their calculations completed,
get
right?
our energy modeling done.
Correct.
Get any fees paid that are required to be paid before permit submittals, any receipts for those. So there's a lot of things that are happening all at once, between plans, engineering, and all the additional things that come along with permitting. But the hopes are that once we get that those plans in hand from the architect, from the engineer, our staff kind of has all of our documents together. We've already got the permit app all filled out, whether it's a paper app or an online, and we're ready to get all that documentation submitted to the municipality so we can get the show on the road with permitting. Now, obviously, once we submit for that permit, we've got all our docs back. We submit for permit. What does the expectation look like?
From a timing standpoint.
Yeah.
Well, once we submit for permit, we're always looking at, and it varies municipality to municipality. There's some towns that we see a 1 week review and we have permit, right?
Yeah.
Don't always take that as here's how it's going to go, because most towns are, you submit, you have a 3 week initial review.
3 to 4, yeah.
Yeah, and you rarely ever pass on an initial review. There's always something, right? And then so they send it back with their permit comments, and then our architects, our engineers, our mechanical contractors all jump in and they make their changes, typically done in a couple of days, and then we get things resubmitted. And then we go back into what we kind of look at as that waiting stage, right? Which people tend to feel like nothing's really going on, but in a minute we're going to talk about where you're headed next and why things are absolutely going on. But if you happen to fail again, then it's typically another 2
Yeah,
weeks.
you're always back in the pile, right?
You're back in the queue.
It's not like you just, because you got a permit in, all
No.
of a sudden your revisions go right to the top of the pile. It's all in a process.
But the great thing is
there's a lot
like,
happening while we have
Yeah.
these permits in.
it's
other
what's
phases
next,
of the
right?
process.
It's like we're heading into, as soon as we have those permit plans done and we're submitted, the client moves right into the next phase, right? Which is our interior design and selections phase. And plenty to do there, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot going on while that permitting is happening. And it really does feel like a well-oiled machine in there, because while we need that time frame for selections and such while that permitting is going on.
Oh yeah. 'Cause otherwise, I mean, if you just moved straight to building, you'd have a lot of setbacks, bottlenecks that you would hit, because there's a lot of things in selections that are all being selected, ordered.
Yeah.
The way it works is our selections team, designers at Refined Design, do all the selections on the project, but then we have a whole nother team behind them that's actually making all the purchasing happening to
Correct.
get that product, get the cabinet, whether it's cabinetry,
There's a lot going
or lumber
on.
order, there's a lot going on
Right.
that all meshes together. So, even though we feel like we're kind of in a waiting period with permitting, we've got all this other stuff in the background, and our team's getting ready to rock and roll.